the world doesn't need another of those things. Like, those were moments in times, and these artists and bands, it's why don't we strive to be the next you, and you be clear on who you are as a person, what it is you love to do, what's your story, what it is you want to share with the world, because that's ultimately what you're doing through art and creative outlet, music being one of those. And then realizing that, it's going to be really, really hard.
You know what? We gonna, we about to take off. Yeah, you know what? We about to take off.
Welcome back to Before We Take Off. As always, I am your host, Mufaro, and today's guest is someone who spent more than 2 decades helping shape the Australian music industry from behind the scenes. Gill Dunn's journey has taken into a career spanning music publishing, organizational culture, and community engagement. She is a co-founder of the Black Music Alliance Australia and also the founder of Soul Sound Management, where she helps music creators understand the business behind their art, build sustainable careers, and take greater ownership of their creative futures. Gill, welcome to the Launchpad and welcome to the show.
Amazing. Thank you, Mafaro. Wow, hearing that back, actually, I often think, gosh, is that actually my story? But I have done all those things. But as you mentioned, from behind the scenes, which is where I think I bring a lot of value.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like you said, it's crazy when someone kind of tells you all the great stuff you've done back to you. It's such a wild thing. But that is part of your story. And I want to deep dive into it. Let's jump straight into it. Gill, tell us from the beginning, who is Gill Dunn?
Wow, that is a big question, I think. But I was born in South Africa. I've lived here many a year. I've just turned 50. Just got back from an incredible trip that my daughters surprised me and took me on. But my story does start in South Africa. We migrated here in the late 70s, did school here, working here. And that is part of my story. And I've realized that more later on in life, I think, and have been exploring, that journey of what it means to sort of know where you come from, be connected from that. Music's always been a big part of what it is that I love about life. And so I really fell into, I suppose, the music business or the music scene by happenstance. I was good at, I enjoyed school, tried university, didn't really, follow through with that. It wasn't really for me at that time. But music's always been, as I said, sort of that common theme. And I did some traveling. I explored, different parts of the world, and then came back in my early 20s and thought, I really suppose I should get a job and try and settle down, get, some apparent career, because that's what I thought you meant to do. But the word career never really, never really resonated with me. I just always wanted to find work that interested me. And again, showing my age, it was a newspaper clipping in a job ad as a receptionist for APRA AMCOS, which again is, 24 years ago. A little bit more than that because I left and then came back. But I did not know what APRA was, but I just took a chance. And then when I got and found out what it is that they do in terms of supporting songwriters and music publishers, and again, this whole system that supports people to write songs, it just fascinated me. And I got to work, through that organization. I'm still there and, have had many various different roles and in different departments. But what has kept me there are the people I work with, but also just being able to support songwriters to do and create music. And then throughout that iteration, as I said, it's been over 20 years and, starting Soul Sound Management is the newest kind of venture, which is just over a year old, which is just a bit of the side kind, I suppose they would call it a side hustle for now, but it's just my passion project because over those years I've spent many a conversation talking to creatives, and the same kind of questions coming up around how does the music business work? How do we have a career in music? We don't understand all of sort of the back end scenarios and things, what it takes to create a career. So I've always just been interested in, helping people and empowering them to get knowledge and, remind them that they've got everything that they need and just be that extra support. So Soul Sound Management is a culmination of, many years experience of knowing obviously APRA AMCOS, which is music royalties specifically, but also just the broader sense of the industry and reminding artists and songwriters that working together, they can be their own industry and repackaging that knowledge in a different way.
100%. I'm pretty interested in something you said just before about, you've never resonated with the term career. I guess before you fell into this, like what did you think were possible options for a career for you? Like what were you looking at before you fell into music?
Nothing in particular, to be honest. I was interested in many different kind of subjects. So like things like history, sociology, like the study of humans and society. And, back and again, showing my age, like those kind of options in terms of other options other than university, I didn't know what jobs, I suppose, were, entailed in and around those subjects, but they were always very interesting to me. So
Yeah.
I always liked, I suppose, helping people. So yeah, I didn't really have a career or I know some people know what it is that they want to do. It was always sort of in that maybe a humanitarian, kind of subjects is really, and, people, even though I'm quite an introvert. So introvert kind of extrovert, I suppose, but I do, like alone time to re-energize, but I do love working with people and I love, helping people. So being able to align that in the creative space and with music was just like this, I suppose, thing that was meant to be. So yeah, I didn't really have career ideas or options, and my parents weren't. I'm the youngest of 5. So by that time, they were never real. They just wanted us to be happy and, do the thing that makes us happy and hold it down and things like that. But it was never kind of, you've got to be a doctor or a lawyer or anything like that. It was just make the best of this new life, in Australia and be as happy as you can be doing that kind of thing. So yeah, I love travel, anything that was going to take me traveling. So
Yeah.
I would do anything that would just fund that and then enjoy that and come back.
Totally. And that's so fair. So what was, I guess, is there for you a clear moment in time that you're like, okay, the creative industry or the music industry is absolutely my jam?
Like, yeah, the minute I walk through APRA's doors. So that, I believe everything happens for a reason. And
Yeah.
I started out as the receptionist, which gave me a broad range and knowledge across the business because you're answering calls for all the different kind of departments and they're having to field that. And then just spent time with, doing administrative support throughout various different departments. And so the one that I spent most of my time in my career in has been the membership department. But I, given that length of time at an organization and a company like that, you do get the visibility across all of the different facets of the business. So I've worked, within the distribution team. I'm currently in the people and culture team, but membership, supporting our publisher members was the predominant, and leading the teams that did that has been the main part of the extent of my career. And just learning like all of the different, from the data and administration kind of side of things and just all of, the research, so it seems like a whole different podcast that we can spend just on APRA because of the intricacies of it. But it was really, walking through those doors and just being and working with people that loved music. And I'm fortunate that I get to work with a lot of incredible musicians over the years and still do. Who are also working there. So it's just people that, are there for a common purpose and goal, and it really aligns with my values. So, being able to use my skills in that way, like, I couldn't really work for a bank or just, I don't know, organizations where the values don't align, I suppose, or that it's just not that interesting to me. So what's kept me there and where I knew it was my jam was really, music, it's just been part of my life for as long as I can remember. And then being able to support the people that created at the genesis of it is just like, really
And I
valuable.
guess and well, I was going to say, I guess people often associate working in the music industry with either being an artist or a producer or a performer. So like, I'm curious, how did you kind of discover that your contribution to the industry would be supporting the people who make the art?
Again, being exposed and being able to work at a company like APRA, which is essentially everything that does and what that company represents. So it collectively goes out and, champions and, negotiates collective licenses as a group. So members join up and, as I said, musicians work there, but, it's really hard to earn a living as a musician. So often they're having to have other jobs, or they've had a stint at that. And then, either they become parents and then they need a bit more of a steady income, or whatever the reason is that they find their way. And some of them are really gigging musicians. They are still very actively gigging, but they also just being part of that community. So just knowing that there's these roles that exist, that, I'm not a singer, I'm not a creative in that way. Like, I think we're all inherently creative beings, but we all have a role to play. And, everyone's got a special skill, gift and talent. And mine, I believe, is to be passionate about something like music, understand the depths of the knowledge in terms of licensing and contracts and just royalty streams and income streams for musicians and songwriters in particular. That's the lane that APRA is in terms of the song composition. But that there's a whole, and I'd say to people as well, like, talking to the sort of artists or songwriters coming up, and I'm saying often you already have the crew that you need. Like, you've got the cousin that's the accountant, or the friend that's the accountant, or the friend that loves a great spreadsheet, that you need all that administrative, support in order to track income and registrations and all of those things. And it just really interests me. And, there's a whole, just all of the way that the mechanics of, a business like APRA works. It's just, we're always learning. Like, I've been there over 20 years. I'm still learning something new every day, because it's an ever-changing landscape constantly.
Yeah.
But I'm a big advocate of letting, people know that you can work in music and be part of music, even if you're not the artist. Because often being an artist and being the one front and center on stage is really tough. It's not as, often as glamorous as the world would want you to believe. Like, and there's other ways with which you can be a part, and the roles are necessary, and that support is needed. So if you are, and there's often people that thought music, and they wanted to be the artist, but they discovered that they were a great songwriter and they were able to pen and write for other people. And that's really where they found their jam. Or, they were a great manager because, they were driving all of their friends around to all of the gigs, and, that became a business and a career or a job. Or, sound engineers and all of the infrastructure that, or even if you are an accountant, that you used to be that DJ and you wanted to be that wonderful musician, but you thought, oh, okay, I've got to go down, a path. But accountancy was really your gift. You can be still using that talent, but in a way that is in the music and creative space. And a lot of people don't realize that there are roles and careers in these spheres that are needed, just like other, industries require accountants and things like that, or financial planners, for instance, or even there's a lot of crossover. Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess what has working closely with songwriters and publishers, what does that teach you about, I guess, the difference between making great music and building a functioning career in this space?
That's a great question. I think, like with anything, I think of my, my life and my, career trajectory or my work life. You've just got to, remain open and curious. And I think a lot of people have an idea about, I want to try, and I encourage people to try, just try a whole bunch of things. So you might think, you want to be that artist and because you love to create music. And I just always encourage people to just, if music is what it is that you love to do, always try and, don't give up on that. But it doesn't necessarily mean it's got to be your career or the thing that you make money off, because to inherently create and to write a song often is very a personal thing, like to share a story or to be in a place, and to write music. And again, I'm not, I'm surrounded by no witness, and I to have a lot of conversations with people that do that. I think it's one of the bravest things in the world is to create art, and a song is one of those things. Is to just, if music, if music is the thing that you just, time passes and, you're not watching the clock or you're just in flow in doing it, then that's probably the thing that you're meant to do in this world. So if you want to, if you want to do that thing, then, try and do that thing. But it doesn't necessarily mean that once you attach, okay, and I've got to have a career and make money out of it, there's a whole sort of infrastructure that you need to think about that, to build a team out potentially. And I just encourage people to, test a few things out, and just because you make music doesn't necessarily mean that other people are going to connect with it, relate to it, or want to pay for it. So
Yeah.
part of what I do within soul sound management and, over the years at APRA, I had leadership positions and coaching sort of and mentoring roles, that I still do. It's getting people to ask their why. Like, why is it that you want to do music?
Yeah.
Like, is it something that you inherently have to do because it provides therapy or a creative outlet, or it's the way that you feel, that's what God put in you to share with the world? Or is it you're chasing a number one award or money or, so once you get clear on those goals, then that's going to be, a bit of a more sustainable path. And you've got to constantly be checking in as to your why. But I think a lot of people, and I put myself, in that basket, is that we don't pause and do that enough. Is to go like, why am I doing this? Like, is it because it's what I think I need to do? Is it because I'm seeking someone else's, approval, or I want to be rich and famous? Like, and there's no right or wrong. It's just about being clear on that. And then you go in with as much information and knowledge about, and I think you attract to you then what it is that you want to do. But I often just say, like, sometimes, if you focus on your craft, so if music is the thing you want to do, then you've got to focus on that craft and focus on just creating great songs, create music. But if you've been at it a little while and you're not, it's not really happening for you. And again, what is a little while? Like in, current society, everyone wants this sort of viral moment or this overnight success. And, overnight success is often like a 5 to 10 to 15 year hard slog of behind the scenes, you're doing live show, like, and that whole live component is, a whole sort of other side of things as well. We went through, I suppose, the opportunity of, people are able to make music from anywhere now. So they can have a laptop, they can be in your bedroom, and wow, we could create a song and it's out there. And now we're seeing like this it's like an oversaturation, really. Like people don't know, like a bit of overwhelm a little bit, and historically there was a lot more of a bit of a process. And some people would go, the gatekeepers, but curation as well, I don't see as necessarily gatekeeping, or I think a little bit of gatekeeping needs to sort of come back in some regard. And, it has a negative connotation. So, maybe that's not quite the right term, but I think a curatorial or, people just focusing on the story and what it is that they're trying to share and connect with an audience, rather than I can make this song and then just up and it's out in the world. So have you thought about, okay, and then you're wondering why, why aren't I popping off? It's like, well, people want, who are you? What is your story? Like, can you perform, can you translate that into a live show and have that real, people aren't necessarily thinking all of those things through because they don't know. Like, and I think that social media and the digital world has had a big impact on that. And again, because I'm old now, I mean, well, I think, old in mind and spirit and literal age, but, just that sound of, like of a live band with instruments, and people knowing how to, knowing all the work that goes into pulling that together, it's a lot of work, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. And I think, work or having to put in effort for something has sort of gotten a bad rap. People just want this instant, I want to be able to get the song up, write the song, get it out there, and then have all of this success without, looking at a bit in the past to go, oh, okay, I wonder how other people did it. And it's not about that you're looking to be the next person that's already done it, but because we don't need another, famous music, like to replicate that,
Yeah.
we need the person to be in tune with who they are, who their story, their own story, because that will resonate with someone. And,
Yeah.
the clearer that people are on that, then that's where the connection happens.
You're absolutely right. And like, like you said before, like the accessibility to release music now is just so, you think of in the past, and there's many stories, many documentaries about it, about like payola and having to rock up to a radio station with a cassette tape and $20, and maybe you might get a play at 5 a.m. or like, anything like that. Whereas now it's like anyone can just purchase a microphone, plug it in, record a song, upload it, and it'll be on Spotify within 7 days. Like music
Yeah.
is so much more accessible, which is, I guess, a good thing, right? But like you said,
Yes.
there's an oversaturation where now there is just so many people and artists in the industry itself that it is becoming harder to determine, what's great, what's not great, and there's short attention spans and short release cycles and everything like that. So I'm sure, like, with your over 20-year career, like, you've seen that shift from, you couldn't just release music. You had to actually have a label or someone representing you and backing you, to the shift of, okay, it's just upload and send and it's done. It's $20 a month and it's done.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, like, with that, like, what have you seen change for the better, and what also still feels, I guess, frustratingly unchanged?
Yeah. That's a great question. And, I don't think there's either a right or a wrong. Like, I think all of it can have play a part. I think having accessibility and opening up pathways for the independent artist and, absolutely, like, that was definitely needed. So historically, the music industry, and often I'll say I work for APRA AMCOS, like, I have a bit of a thing about, I suppose, the industry and the history of an industry, which has been typically quite exploitative, right? And hasn't necessarily been for the artist or the creative. So, that's also what, my passion and why I started Soul Sound Management, around wanting to empower people and flipping that script a little bit so that, letting creatives and songwriters or artists know that, yes, the industry needs to exist because it's built, the infrastructure or the network, and historically, yes, there's been, as you sort of said, like, to try and get on radio, you had to have a label historically. And I
Mhm.
think at every point in history, it served a purpose and a time. And then, with technology or just with people's awareness and more information being known, things shift, and that's a good thing until it
Yeah.
goes too far, like the other way, right? So I think somewhere in the middle, is a good place to be, where it's not just any music can be uploaded and out there. Like, it's got to be good.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, because I too could learn and, teach myself and record a song, and it's very subjective. So again, like with
Yeah.
art, it's very subjective, but there's a lot of trash out there on the
Yeah.
internet.
Yeah.
And, with
Yeah.
AI, like, it's even, that's a whole separate conversation. But, I think there's room for it all. So again, gatekeeper definitely needed to shift and be away, because you had to have, a whole lot of money and like that accessibility piece of, no, we need to be able to get more people who are really talented. But I think, sort of, as we know, there's there's people that can be successful and, have hits. And we know of so many talented people that, like, it requires a whole combination of a different matter of things that are going to make someone, I suppose, be well known or successful. And again, it
Yeah.
depends on how you define success or what
Yeah.
it is that you're looking for. And again, back to, asking, in terms of through my business, asking people is what is their why and what would they define as success? Like, these are some of the questions that I get people to think about, because we often don't pause to do that. And I think now that, yes, the accessibility and we can have it available and out there in the world, humans are just overwhelmed with choice now, though. So everything
Yeah.
is not necessarily resonating, and people, And the poor artists and songwriters are having to, what labels and A&R and creatives and artist development used to do was they would have teams that would take care of the, maybe not so much social media, but like the PR, the marketing, and now some of those teams are sort of hanging back and waiting for artists to get to a certain level, and they need to have X amount of numbers and streams and, be content created, like all of these things. And they're like, but we just want to make music. And it's shifted again with that pendulum swing a bit too far to have all of these expectations for artists and songwriters to be so far removed from just creating the art. And yes, you do need to have that knowledge of business. And I just think that it's having the information and knowing again what it is that you are good at, what you enjoy to do, and then outsourcing the rest. So whether that is, okay, I do need to find a label now, or I do need to start to think about building a team, and people want to lead to, I need a manager. And it's sort of like, well, what do you have to manage? Like, do you actually have, people think, I need a manager to make it or to be credible in the industry. And it's like, possibly, but also, the nature of the manager means that you need help to manage something.
Yeah. And,
I encourage, people that want to make music, or, the artists and the songwriters, to ask themselves some of the, which can be a bit confronting. It can be a bit, some of these, I suppose, tough conversations. But I also say, if music is what it is you love to do, then keep doing it. And you're going to have to, don't give up at the first sort of knockback or the first no. There's going to be plenty of those, because that's just the nature of life, really. And if we keep going back to asking and being self-reflective of, okay, what is this thing? I've been doing it now for 15 years and I'm not where I want to be. And it's like, well, were you clear on where you wanted to be 15 years ago when you started? And sometimes we're not, but it's sort of this iterative approach that we need to do reflectively to work out, okay, I started this because I wanted to be the next, I don't know, Beyonce, or, the next In Excess, or, and it's like, the world doesn't need another of those things. Like, those were moments in times, and these artists and bands, it's, why don't we strive to be the next you? And you be clear on who you are as a person, what it is you love to do, what's your story, what it is you want to share with the world, because that's ultimately what you're doing through art and creative outlet, music being one of those.
Yeah.
And then realizing that, it's going to be really, really hard. And don't be afraid of that, because that also can be really, really rewarding.
Yeah.
And enjoy the journey, and you've got to fall in love with the journey. And, I mean, that term and that word is, a bit overused sometimes, or the process. So the actual process of writing a song to figuring out, okay, how do I now get it out into the world to share it with an audience? And, community also is a word that is very close to my heart, and very now being a bit commercialized, I think, often it's like everyone's now talking about having a community and absolutely. I think so, because I think it's best to do life together with other people than by yourself all the time. But I always just get nervous around what's now like corporate, it's like now being commodified and money being put around every, brand and stuff is talking about community now, community. And it's like, well, when we hear that word, what are we actually talking about? Like, what does that mean? And, and yes, audience. So, or tribe, or what are all these different languages? So it's like, well, again, if you're wanting to build have a music career and do music as the creative side of things, then why would people want to, part with their money to, what is that connection point? And if you focus on, rather than, I need 1 million followers, rather than if I've got 1,000 people that rock with me and, really believe in what it is I do, then focus on building sort of deep connection and relationship with those 1,000 people. And at the point with which you're like, okay, now I've got merch, or now I'm actually going to do the CD, they're just going to not think twice about buying that.
Absolutely.
Because they've got that connection with you and they believe in what it is that you're doing. And that's just going to take some time. Like that just doesn't happen overnight. And I think social media and TikTok and, these short snippet kind of, our brains have just been, overstimulated and attention spans are really short. But I also just think there's room for long form content and there's room to spend time and build relationships still. So I also don't buy it has to be in these 30-second clips now. Like, yes, that was a moment in time, or, you've got to fit everything into a minute 30. Yes, some things, but there's also still room for a bit of a conversation.
100%.
And that longer form content.
Yeah, well, because even on that long form piece, like that's why for me, like even just this podcast is like, I will sit here and talk to someone for 30 minutes, for 2 hours. If they've got something to say and fill that time, like the floor is yours, right? Like, yeah, I remember there was one episode that was maybe just under an hour. And then the person who was on it was, concerned that it was too long. And I was like, this is actually really short for a podcast. Like this is not long at all. So like, yeah, you're definitely right in the sense that I think society has kind of given, people having short attention spans too much grace. Like we're letting it happen too easily when we actually should be reminding people, like you said, like, what's your story? Like take the time to actually understand what someone's story is and where they're from and what they are wanting to achieve. And, they could be your next favorite artist. They could be your next favorite, business person. Like they really like just take the time to listen to what someone is doing and kind of hitch that ride from the beginning so that when they get to that future spot and they get to whatever their North Star is, you're very much someone who was there from the beginning. Right?
Well, exactly. And, back to sort of what we were saying earlier around the shift in the industry, it's, I'm always reminding myself and those that I work with that there is no industry without the creative. Like the reason we all have jobs is because people entrust us with helping them have a career and going into, I suppose fight for their rights in terms of the copyright side of things and the APRA, kind of lens. It's collectively going in, to negotiate license fees to go, yes, you need to pay. If you use music in your business, then you need to pay for that because the people that create that music, have the right to be remunerated and paid for that. It's not just free. And again, it's a big education piece in that, and our licensees, licensees of APRA range from the local cafe and hairdresser through to, your Spotify's, YouTube's big network that have high consumption or their whole business model is built around music. So it's helping people understand that value chain and why it is that they need to pay for that. And also being clear about where that goes and how it gets back to the songwriter.
100%.
So it's, another piece of, why, again, I just love working where I do and have for the many years that I have, because it's just never a dull moment. There's always something new and interesting. And, with the introduction of digital, again, because I've been there so long, I remember when it was very analog and paper related files and, handwritten registrations and that kind of thing. Now a very big data digital business because of, the changing landscape and technology and us, being able to be adaptive to that. And this year APRA is 100 years old as an organization. So I think that is a testament to, the need for the organization, but also just the ability to be able to shift and change and be responsive to our members' needs and, and being open to, respond and being adaptive because, and continuously trying to bring value and then being able to say, look, if we can't bring the value and you need to, work with other partners, then you're well within your right to do that.
Yeah.
Because I think being able to demonstrate, what value you either bring as an individual or as an organization, it's really important.
Yeah, for sure. And hey, shout out APRA, man. Like I still get my royalty checks every now and then. So I appreciate it. I want to shift gears. Yeah. It all goes into the next song pretty much. It's
Yeah,
just
exactly.
I want to shift gears into soul sound management. So the business kind of talks about helping artists own their creative futures. What does that ownership look like to you?
I I don't know that I've got a vision for that. For me, the business model really is about, again, empowering the creatives to know that they need to have that vision and that ownership, is key in that. And, I, I often like to say, or I think that, they are the CEO of their creativity. So if you want to have and do music, and not to have to work or do, sort of side gigs or other kind of work, it's going, well, how serious are you about this? And, you know,
Yeah.
are you willing to explore and, deep dive into the knowledge about what a sustainable career looks like? And, again, my approach and my, I think, point of differentiation, and I'm sure other people are doing it too, but, it's a very holistic approach, and it's really just leaning on that coaching and leadership kind of skill set that I bring that just helps people remember that they already have everything that they need.
Yeah.
We were all born with it. And then, we sort of forget or lose touch, or we're not encouraged to spend enough time exploring what our gifts and skills and talents are. So
Mm.
I'm really in the business, and again, I'm passionate about reminding, and having real conversations as well. Now, is this really what you want to do? Because this is what it's going to take. It's going to
Yeah.
be this, this, this. It's going to take time, and again, I think some people, older people, younger people, like, it doesn't really matter at what point you discover that. I'm just always encouraging people to remain curious and remain
Mm.
curious about, again, their purpose and their why, and to know that we can look around and be inspired, as I sort of mentioned earlier. But again, the industry, as you can see, we can see it's got, like with anything, good and bad elements to it. So, historically, it's been that it's had this either drug fueled or alcohol fueled, or this kind of scene around it, which is not sustainable from a from like a health kind of wise, but it's sort of what people think you need to do in order to make it, or that's part of the fun, and it's a party, and yes, all of those things are true. And
Mm.
also, if the reason that you're having to do that is because, yes, you're masking and you're using those as crutches, or because you've got debilitating anxiety or performance anxiety or whatever it is, it's just being clear on, again, what's our why for reaching for those things. And unfortunately, there's many a tale of very successful people that you see have not had very good long-term life outcomes, unfortunately, because
Yeah.
of some of these things. So I'm just very passionate, again, about people just having as much information about, I don't know, life in general, I think, but being in music and just like, who are you as a person? Like, do we even know? Like, and that's just an ever evolving thing. I think there's levels to everything. I think, if you're comfortable in your skin and you're, confident in who you are, then you're going to attract the people that are going to, sort of take you to the next level and things like that. So soul sound management really is about helping people just gain information around, yes, music business, particularly around songwriting, if you're a songwriter, and yes, an artist as well. Sometimes the songwriter is the artist, sometimes they're not, but really just, got a deep knowledge around royalties, licensing, infrastructure around that, and the
Yeah.
business administration elements of that. But also just, yeah, giving people options to go that, did you know, you could write music for screen and composition. Like, you could have that passion for music and have a talent that you can have these multidisciplinary applications that
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
don't even realize, because what's pushed is you've got to be the artist, you've got to be the one on the stage, you've got to be. And yes, that's important and true, because we need the people who are really good at that, because not everyone can do that. Some people are really great
Yeah.
songwriters for other
Yeah.
people,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is a career. Like, that's what they do. And that's what I see as sustainable, because if you talk to touring and gigging musicians, like, that's you know, it's really challenging. Like, yes, there's that reward on the stage, but if you're doing it independently, it's like you've got to map out the, you're often unpacking, unloading the van, the thing yourself. It's like,
Yeah.
or calling on friends to, help. Like and the older you get, it's just, you become tired and you don't want to be out late at gigs at 10 o'clock at night or whatever it is. Like, so
Yeah.
the songwriting career, like to be a career songwriter is just often, it's funny, like people just, the conversations that I have, everyone wants to talk about the artist. It's just the artist.
Yeah.
It's the label. And yes, that's absolutely important. And sometimes, again, as I said, it's interchangeable, but there's plenty of songwriter over the year that, or a producer, and even producers, like they are behind the scene, like, no one, but they play an important role and everyone's got that role to play. So really giving people the information to go, if you want to take this seriously, like think of yourself as a CEO, that your music is your business. And treat it as such. So walk into rooms like owning that and, bring people with you into a conversation. Like you don't need to walk into rooms alone. Like just even to have another set of ears and eye, if someone's bringing a contract or, offering you a deal, it's like, okay, making sure you're getting legal advice or just getting someone else to even just read over it. And if, historically, like a lot of contracts, they're 30, 40 pages. Like, I'm just like, yeah, that's cool. And yes, sometimes it's necessary, but I'm also like, is it necessary? Because if that's just been the industry standard, like sometimes the standards need to be questioned or adjusted, couldn't you just have like a one pager? And maybe it's one, but that's very clear and written in a way that is easy for the person to understand. Or at least definitely, to get a second opinion. And because lawyers are not cheap. So it's sort of like, what's like an in-between? And I'm always just saying to some, people, don't be afraid to bring, someone else in a conversation with you. And if someone's balking at that or like questioning, then it's probably a sign as well that you probably don't want to do business with someone like that. If someone's not encouraging you to and explain really clearly what it is that they're trying to offer you, then it's probably a sign or a flag that maybe that at the timing or the alignment, it's not right. So maybe it's time to just sort of keep it moving and, and trust your gut instinct because there's always something telling you whether something is, and we ignore it all the time. And I say that because it's taken me a long time to trust my gut.
Yeah.
When it's like, oh yeah, I knew that. I had that sense or I had that feeling. We have it. And we're quick to just, oh, no, to either ignore. And more often than not, it always sort of plays out to go, oh, yeah. Not always in a terrible way, but it's just like, oh, that didn't quite go as I had hoped. Or, no, that person, that person showed me who they were really early on there in that conversation. And I say to the artists, and I'm just like, go with your gut. Like, if something's not feeling right, it just means you need to pause and just get some more information. Or either recalibrate, and maybe it's just a timing thing. It's not to say that, this person's evil or exploitative or things like that. That does exist, but that's also not the majority, right? Like, often we just hear these stories of bad actors and bad contracts, but it's like, but that was the contract you signed. So there's the accountability as well of going, be aware of what it is you're signing.
Of course, yeah.
And sometimes it is expensive, but that's what, you're going to have to invest in yourself.
Yeah. And we've all been in those situations where, we thought something was too good to be true, but we jumped for it anyway. And maybe you had that bad feeling or that inner voice kind of telling you like, hold on, wait a minute. And you kind of just kept
going. No, definitely.
going, so.
I think it's something is too, these sayings and you sort of exploit, but it's often, kind of the way of, and sometimes it is, again, just maybe that timing thing. It's like, it might just not, it's too good to be true right now. Like, it doesn't mean down the track it won't eventuate, but just maybe not down the path that you thought it would. And if something is coming a little too easy, be suspicious of it. I can't believe it's just like, it is to be, we have to have a healthy level of suspicion and paranoia, like, I think.
Yeah.
But again, not to any extreme that you don't trust anyone or you don't want to work with anyone, but it's okay to ask questions and it's okay to
For sure.
seek clarity. So someone will show you who they are in the way that they respond to your request for clarity around a contract or.
Yeah.
And, I often say to people as well, if you're feeling some kind of if you're feeling pressure or they're trying to push something through really quickly, that's time to, kind of just put a pin in it for the moment and go, actually, no. And to empower them to go, actually, I'm going to need to think about this.
Yeah.
And come back to you next week. Or, so that's also another sign of, it's like with cybersecurity, training. I often think with the scammers, if it's time pressure, if they're trying to urgent, do it now, act it's, we need a response now, in this moment without giving that time. That's probably someone that's trying to make sure you miss the very fine print about something they're going to have you on the hook for. So you're well within your right to ask for some more time and go, no, I need someone else to look at this, or I need some more time to think about it. And that's okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And like you said, if someone really wants to work with you, they will allow you to have that second set of eyes in the room or set of ears in the room. They'll allow you to sort of take the time to actually think about what you're presenting to. So I guess I'm also curious about when it comes to soul sound management and people working with you, what is one key takeaway? What is one key lesson you wish someone who works with you learns or understands or is confident doing for themselves in the music industry?
One key takeaway. I just think that knowledge, the old adamant that knowledge is power. So don't be afraid to ask questions and seek out information. And, the ethos or the reason for me starting this business was to, draw in and use all of the different bits of information that I've gained over that period of time, all of the conversations I've had, the questions that, same kind of questions that keep coming up. And in conjunction with, again, that coaching and leadership and just going that there isn't any one particular answer. It really depends on a few things, but knowledge is power. And so depending on where it is and what stage of career you're at, or it's really knowing yourself, be really comfortable in knowing who you are as a person and being open to being really reflective, and don't be afraid to reach out and ask questions.
Yeah.
There's so much information out there. So that's the other thing I think we're so overwhelmed with is all of the information ever. It's not quite this, this is a very broad brush statement, but there's so much information and so much knowledge at people's fingertips, but they're so overwhelmed because they don't, again, just know where to start. And they're not sure, because we're being encouraged, again, to outsource our critical thinking and outsource our actual thinking through AI and these tools. So it's, I'm always don't forget to engage and think first and then use the tools, or then, because there's so much information out there. So it's almost never been easier, to start a business or to get those songs out there or share with an audience. But I think people, we're in a cognitive overwhelm. And I think, again, coming back to sort of a holistic approach, it's us being healthy and well within ourselves. So whether that's, and you sort of see it in the younger generation coming through, and having to see venues, music venues rethink about what the business model is, because a lot of younger people, they're not drinking really like that. They're not really into that kind of party. And, they're being a lot more intentional because of the cost of living, but they're not afraid to want to spend their money for something that they really believe in or that they want to experience. But, businesses are having to rethink and go, okay, well, it's not like an alcohol kind of fueled system. Yes, it's still there, but people are much more conscious about their health.
That's it.
Because, health is wealth. And if that goes, then we can't do, you can't really do anything. But there is so much, knowledge is power. Seek it out. And, my business aims to try and create a funnel or a curation path through a series of questions, helping people, I suppose, navigate all of that. and for them to sort of choose their own adventure based on where it is that they find themselves when they come across my business. Because,
Yeah,
I have a whole range of different conversations with a whole range of different people who want a whole range of different things.
Mm.
But, the through line is that they really love music. They want to make music and they want to understand how to do that and be compensated for it and to have money, around that. And it's about, I think, building all of the different streams of income that's around that creates the revenue streams for you so that you can focus on the art. And sometimes that is, having the team or building the team or outsourcing, the questions to other people to help and it be done in a way that, it's mutually beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, like you said, it's that symbiosis.
Was it?
No, that was great.
Hello.
It was great because I think you answered a couple of my follow-up questions, so I'm not even going to have to ask them. But
right.
I think what's great is like, what comes through is like your passion for just helping people and for helping them kind of navigate this industry, which, look, is, to be very fair, even from my own experiences, will chew up and spit you out just as quick as, you can find yourself on an international playlist. You can find yourself gigging and touring one day, and then the next day you're at home and you haven't made music for 3 years. That's me. So,
well, but this is the thing, right? There's so many different stories like that, and I think encouraging, like you said, yourself or other people that find themselves in that situation to build your own. Like, there's room to build your industry. This industry, as it said, it can chew you up and spit you out. And for me, I go, that's one version of it, right? And what we are seeing now and what, conversations and that I'm in, it's like artists really wanting to step in and go, enough, like we can't anymore. And my passion is encouraging, like, we don't want to do it that way. Like, you don't have to do it that way. It is one way. And yes, again, with that knowledge is power is going, once you go into this slipstream, into this industry, you are you are working they are for-profit businesses. So if you're racing to want to sign to a label or a music publisher, yes, they have very big resources and infrastructure and teams, and you are one of a many long list of catalogs or other artists that they're managing. So it's just going in there with that knowledge and managing expectations, because you then are becoming a product that the minute you stop selling or perform, like, they got to move on to the next thing because they're answerable to shareholders at the end of the day.
That's
that is what it is, like, right or wrong or like it or don't, but that's the reality. So I'm also big on just presenting the reality so people can have that choice and go, oh, well, that's not really aligned with my values. And sometimes it is about, we need that big advance because that's actually going to help me buy my first property or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But know that money doesn't come for free, and can't just forget about it. Like, you got to pay that back. Like, and it comes with, they're trying to recoup that from many a line of income that's nothing to do with just the record and they may not have helped you with your, so there's a whole bunch of, again, just read those contracts. But people just going in, again, just back to my passion that I want people to know is like, just knowledge is power. Be curious, ask questions, just keep questioning, and those open-ended kind of questions that don't allow people to just give yes or no answers.
For sure.
So that, you can make the most informed decision at that moment in time. And again, based on, where you are, in your career, in your life, what it is you're after, what it is you're looking for. There's many factors that sort of play into that, and that there isn't really a one size fit all, because that opens up an abundance of opportunity, I see, to go, yes, we can talk to other, and I encourage artists to talk to each other. It's not this crabs in a barrel, that the world is an abundant place, but sometimes the industry, particularly here in Australia, it's very small, it's very small in terms of a global context.
Yeah.
we do, we've got a lot of talent, like for the size of the population, like we have a lot of creative talent here. And I think it's just historically, whether it be tall poppy syndrome or just that Australian, it's like this sort of small-minded mindset of like the Australian audience and public need an artist to be approved by, the big international parent kind of, I don't know what it is. I mean, yeah, like some sort of, it needs the approval from an international market before they'll jump on board. And I'm just like, that just
Yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
crazy to me. We are so missing out. Not missing out, but
Yeah.
eventually. But an artist is like, I've slogged it here for 5 years and people are just not, and I don't know what the answer to that is fully, but I'm just like, there's so many different, factors that feed into that. And I think it's culturally, it's historically, it's all of these things. But Australia's just been so slow on, supporting their local acts that are right here in their backyard and that want to connect with the audience here. And then they've got to go and be discovered overseas, which sometimes happens like that. And I don't know if it's a maturum. I don't fully know. And again, I suppose it depends on the artist and there is many factors, but it is like, wow, if only we could just really not be infiltrated with all of this international music as well. Like, again, there's many systems that are at play that impact that, but it's like, why are we not support? Yes, community radio does, but it's like commercial radio, come to the party. Like,
yeah. And
play
like
all of the amazing local music that we have at our fingertips here. Like, but
because you think of people like Tones and I, who I think Dance Monkey, she recorded it and released it. It was a couple of years before it actually blew up, right? And like,
yeah.
Kid Leroy, kind of similar stories where like, he was in and around, but then once he had that, whether it's a collaboration with Justin Bieber or something else, it's like, oh yeah, now we're ready to get behind him. And
yeah,
it is a very interesting kind of mentality here where supporting local music isn't a thing or like a cool thing. Whereas like you look at like the UK or the US, you'll have a local artist sell out a small theater, like a few hundred people theater, like very easily, just because they've got, whether it's their people and then their people spread the word and then they've just got all this instant backing. So it is very much, and like, I don't even know the answer either, but it is very much a clear observation that there is a local support problem here in Australia.
It is shifting and changing. And look, by sheer numbers, I also understand what, like, you can't just have some people go, and again, it comes back to success though, and what someone's measure of success is. It's like, music export is a big thing that, I think Australia and New Zealand can be very, and are very successful in, and that export is needed. And maybe it's, I don't know, maybe it's fine. It happens that way. I don't know. By sheer numbers, you're going to have to tap into and everyone's like, it's a global audience now. And it's like, yeah, but to be able to travel and go tour internationally, like that's next level expensive. Like to tour locally is as expensive as it gets as well, let alone to go, oh my gosh, I now need, and Australia being so geographically removed, it's a very big investment to make. So yes, you have to be at a certain level in order to do that. And so by sheer numbers, the Australian population, it's a blip in the global context of audience, right? Numbers. But I just think in terms of building that, again, what is success and who is the audience that you're trying to connect with? So if you've got 1,000 people here that you are connected with in some way, whether that be on social media or you email them or you talk to them in some way and you're building that relationship, those 1,000 people, it doesn't, for me, have to be tens of, like, that stuff will come if you really start, I think start small, start local. Like, this is, your story is tied here. So if you're here, you're either born here, you've migrated here, you've moved here, you spent any length of time here, that is part of your story. And there's something very unique about that. that doesn't exist in other massive global markets. And I think we're really missing the opportunity to share that story. And I think, though, historically, a lot of Australian acts, and New Zealand for that matter, have had a lot of success, and given that population size, and have had big success. And Australia is seen as often definitely part of a touring, market for international acts to come through.
Yeah.
And that's great. And now, we just got to get them to make sure that they're getting local acts to be on their support, which is definitely shifting and changing now.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing more of that, which is great. But that you can have your community of, like boutique, kind of small, intimate connection that can sustain you,
Yeah.
Again, back to just what success means to someone as an artist. So I know plenty of people that they want to just be able to play music regularly. It covers their cost of living. They ain't looking for awards and ARIAs and Grammys and, Ivor awards as their why. And, they're focusing on the music and the song and the story. And I know those things will come for those people. And I've seen that trajectory where the story is, going back to Tones and I, who, loved music, was busking, was playing on the street, someone heard, and then the team kicks in, and then the infrastructure kicks in to blow that up, right? It is that kind of trajectory and story. But there was this connection, to an audience live in, someone heard it, and then, the story goes. And there's so many stories like that, but then there's other bits and pieces that come in to have that, career kind of sustained and supported. And, again, I believe the world is an abundant place, and, an industry or corporates or that would have you believing that, and awards by their nature is there's a winners and losers, and there's, and that's one element. But if, awards is not, I'm sure accolades, it's always nice to be recognized and awarded for your hard work and talent and things like that. But if that's what people are striving for, it's like, well, how do I write a song that's going to be a number one? It's like, well, how long is a piece of string? And, for me, it's sort of like not the way to frame that question. It should be like, well, why do you make music? What is your why for making music?
Yeah.
And if that is the thing, then, and I have had those conversations, it's like, well, I want to be a millionaire. It's like, okay, great. So you're going to have to go into that industry and get the teams and have all of that and have the money behind you, and know that with that comes other things.
Yeah.
And are you ready for those other things? And just, again, having your support people around you, having people, again, that from your day one that knew you before, and not saying everyone that discovers you later after you've made it is out to get you or exploit you, but I'm also like, be a little wary.
Yeah.
And those that have been with you and supported you, and your people that keep you grounded and keep you, and don't surround yourself with just yes people.
Yeah.
Because often they're wanting something for themselves.
Yeah, and it's like another guest on this show said, Francois, he said, you got to play long-term games with long-term people and really build that circle around you that will kind of nurture you, right, and carry you to the next step because it's they want to be there.
Yeah, completely. And they want the best for you, but also it can have an open discussion about, well, they want the best for themselves and they want the best for you, and they want to be able to nurture you, and they're clear about why, their why as to why they're there. So that they can have a transparent conversation to go, okay, so what is this relationship now? Are we in business? Because I think this is also what happens, and where people, may stumble, and it's not again necessarily a bad thing, but it's like often we'll start with friends that, there's a crew or there's a group or and the friend is the man, ends up becomes the manager or whatever it is, like plays the role that's needed at that point in time. But I'm always like, well, make sure you're having the conversations very early on, and like, what is that saying about start how you mean to go on? So have the end, like have an end goal or something in mind. So you're having clear conversations about, okay, this relationship's now potentially going to evolve, and then money's involved. Like, just be really transparent. And it's okay to have contracts between family and friends.
Yeah.
Like
100%.
There's nothing, and I think people either get awkward around that or nervous, which I understand, but it's like, just, work with people that are not going to balk at that, whether they're your family, your friends, or what it like. So,
yeah.
Because if everyone's clear, then everyone's clear. And then it doesn't, and again, it's like with songwriting splits, like no one wants to talk about, okay, the songwriting royalties if they're in a room together. Oh, because it's going to kill the creative flow. And it's like, okay, I get that. And just build it into your practice. Have the bits of paper, have the email template ready. Okay, so we're ready. We've locked this down. This is the splits. Okay, great. And if someone's, not sure what, because sometimes you might be working with people that aren't as, advanced in knowledge or things like that. And there's different, again, levels of career. But it's like, if someone's either balking or someone that doesn't know, again, it's sort of like, oh, well, it doesn't, don't be embarrassed by that. But also that says a little bit more about their character than, your own. Like, you're just trying to seek information. But I encourage people, I'm like, no, go in there and talk about the song splits. Know what that means, and know what it is. And because sometimes it's hard to negotiate, or what's the percentage and what's that worth. But again, sort of, starting how you mean to go on, to go, look, particularly if you're collaborating from the and you're starting a song from scratch, like different, there's different kind of scenarios where someone might have something that they then bring to a producer, or that they then bring into, a room and other people adds. But it's like going, okay, what's fair?
Yeah.
Based on the end product that you all sort of agree to at the end of the session, what do you think is a fair remuneration, and then know that if you're walking into a room with certain producer, like, just again, that information and that knowledge, it's just really key. Like, some of them are just, they will be demanding it's X%, so it's go in knowing that, or if that reveals itself throughout the course of the session or the conversation, don't be afraid to ask the question. Just go, help me understand how that works. Go, I really want to understand how you got to where you're at, and again, it's the way you would approach that. And not everyone's going to be opening to potentially answering that, but I think it helps with healthy dialogue of the more people that are having these conversations, and where you can and obviously depending on who you're writing with, like if they've got teams and big labels behind them, or publishers or managers, often, in my opinion, they, and again, could be controversial take, and it's not always a black and white situation, but in that creative space, like that's where the conversation around splits needs to be happening. And then all of the other pieces come in and their splits and the contractual, but in that creative moment about who wrote what or what creative contribution, no one else needs to be involved in those conversations in that session. Yes. Again, those teams can be helping guide or, with information and helping their artist or their songwriter be confident in a room and things like that. That's all. But I've often, not often, I have sometimes seen where the dynamic can be swayed because you've got an independent person that doesn't have a team behind them. They are the team. They're doing it all themselves. And they're in a room with one or two other people who do, and that to be used sometimes in that, in that environment. And I just go back to, well, is that fair? Some might say it is, but I just encourage people to go, look, in that creative moment, like talk to each other as a songwriter, as a producer, like the creatives, not your teams. Your teams don't need to be involved necessarily in those initial creative conversations about splits and who's contributed what. But it's really a vital, important piece that, again, I'm passionate about people knowing, because the minute the virality of the TikTok moment happens and all the money starts flowing, people start reimagining and remembering the scenario. And if you've got nothing in, I was in the room and I added this vibe and, but don't you remember that? It's like people get creative. either amnesia or, other stories and narratives start coming in because the money,
Yeah.
right? It's like
Yeah.
if the minute you need to have all that paperwork and admin locked in so that there's no questions,
Yeah. No ambiguity around it.
ambiguity
Um,
or, yeah.
I quickly wanna check or ask, I should say, really, but what was the gap that you saw in the industry that sort of led to Black Music Alliance Australia?
With Black Music Alliance Australia, yeah. I mean, I think that really came out of, and it was, throughout, it was during COVID, but prior to COVID, like just separate conversations that were happening, I suppose, in the Australian music scene amongst, Black people in the industry from the African diaspora on the industry side of things. So again, there wasn't really, we sort of knew of each other, but no one was really actively coming together to go, who's doing what, who's in the scene,
Yeah.
and I suppose wanting to provide an entry point into the industry for Black people who want to learn more about the music industry or figure out how it works, and often are faced with a system or, an environment that isn't necessarily, they don't see themselves in it and sometimes that can be a bit daunting. Sometimes that can be a bit intimidating. Sometimes that can be really frustrating that,
Yeah.
you see a lot of the genres or musical, celebrations that happen in the commercial context, and there's just not really anyone from those cultures in the space or
Yeah.
getting the opportunity. So it really just came from, again, many different conversations and us literally being in lockdown, but wanting to stay connected and then, going, well, what would it look like if we wanted to create a space or an organization or something or people in the industry, but also obviously the creatives, to have a space to come together as a membership organization that provides that space where people can just feel, kind of at ease immediately and they're not afraid to ask the question. And again, have someone to go into a room, again, a team or a resource to potentially go, hey, I've got this opportunity coming up. And obviously it's grown over sort of started end of 2021. And as we're still a very grassroots organization, but we have sort of grown over the years with support and funding and wanting to really keep just providing that space and those solutions. So rather than, again, I suppose, get frustrated and keep going, there's no spaces or people aren't getting the opportunities. It's like, okay, well, what are the things that we're hearing people are being challenged with, and then trying to provide that solution. So, providing education stream. And again, the committee's got over 100 years of experience across the industry in publishing, obviously the APRA, artists, live venue, distribution across the years and the different committee members that have been part of it over that time. And we volunteer our time and rather than, I suppose, keep getting frustrated, it was just like, okay, well, can we build something? Can we try and start something? Can we provide the platform for people to get that showcasing opportunity that they're not quite sure how to, and provide the information? So I suppose, and again, in COVID, it was just, it was in the midst of Black Lives Matter and just, sort of the industry having this awakening or reckoning and awareness of going, right, okay, so that is people's experience, or, oh, all right. And I suppose, in the Australian context, not seeing that, historical kind of cultural connection of the music.
Yeah.
And where it comes from. So we really there's a big education, sort of stream both on the history of music and music business and how to put on a live show. So, that whole wanting to build that out and providing live performance opportunities. So Sound Session is that. So curating a room that has industry people, coming together to see a showcase of artists that, they may ordinarily not get the opportunity to know or see. And then, people can network. So just providing that kind of community space with industry partners as well. So giving them a platform to come in and sort of see, artists that they may not ordinarily kind of know. And just, that kind of celebration element as well. And just going, gosh, there's so many people doing amazing things. And that community part, like just bringing people together. So, another thing we want to launch hopefully soonish will be like a directory. So, of people that want to be, so when you sign up as a member, you can choose whether or not you want to be listed in the directory, based on what it is that your skill set is, or, people that you want that may want to connect with you. So that can be business people, but if you're an artist, producer, create a space where, and yes, that economic piece. So, that economic piece that I think gets left out of, the whole DEI conversation. It's like, oh, diversity, inclusion, and that equity money piece. It's the piece that often just, I suppose, it's not focused on enough. And so that being a big piece of just empowering people to go, ownership is important. Empower yourself with knowledge, and circulating that money, amongst the community, going, look, you can work with other, it's not to say you can work with whoever you want to work with, and you can also, there's, an incredible amount of people from the community, that are here in Australia that are in the creative space that you might want to connect with and work with as well.
And that's so amazing because like you said, it's building that community, and like we've said, community kind of gets thrown around a lot, but building that community with intention, right? And the intention of helping people. And you've spent so much of your career just supporting other people's creative journeys through your work at APRA, through Soul Sound, through the Black Music Alliance. I'm curious about what has that lived experience taught you about yourself?
That is a great question. What it's taught me is really, I really am a lover of humanity, and people and humans. And, my lived experience has, taught me about the strength that I possess, but with also through a very, strength coupled with caring and compassion. So, and just that nurturing, I'm born in July. I'm born on a number 8. I can get really numerological. Anyway, I like to bring astrology into it and just who I am as a person, I am I'm a caring person by nature, and I believe in the strength of, working together, we go further together. And I think having the experiences that I've had, and again, I've worked at APRA a long time. I've had incredible experiences there and not really any kind of adverse issue know that there are people that where that does exist. And I think I choose to see the world as, again, this abundant place that's full of hope and that is got incredible things that happen. And I believe in people, and there's some negative stuff that goes on with that. But I think that, hurt people, and I think that the more we can work together and again, be self-reflective to go, sort of stay on top of our own stuff and make sure that we're not bringing it into every conversation, or that we're not just bringing a scarcity mindset into every situation, and that or a hopeless or helpless mindset into every situation.
Yeah.
There's moments in time and we need to pause and know historical context and, exclusionary behavior. And I think living and growing up in this country, again, was very interesting for me because being born in South Africa, I was very young when I left, but the ages between, all of the siblings it's quite a wide range. But I didn't do any schooling in South Africa, but, predominantly left because of apartheid and came here and grew up, in a country that just doesn't want to face any kind of facts or reason about its own history. And I was always challenged with being teased or, coming from a country that could do this to. And I would just be thinking, and this is very young, I've just been a very curious person and I'm a very deep thinker. But I just remember thinking, getting frustrated, like in primary school and high school, just going, so you're going to, like, I couldn't make sense of it. I would go, but no one wants to deal with, I said, South Africa toured the world and came here to this country, Queensland and New South Wales, to learn about racist structures, but, and other countries, but yet, Australia was so big to look over there and be pointing fingers all over the place and can't reconcile with its own history and the way, and, the ongoing history and, current circumstances of systemic racism.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, and I'm also just a believer, again, in amidst all of that, you are always going to find, regardless of the package the person comes in, good people and value, people where your values are aligned. So part of some of the conversations that, we've had at Beamer as well, it's like, and what I've brought in, it's like, well, what's the conversation within the community about why is it, from a global point to the Australian context or whatever it is, that the unity is not there necessarily within the community as well to want to work together. And yes, we can have numerous conversations about the reasons why of that. And I'm also still a believer that, and then and so what are we still going to do about it? And, not waiting for others to provide the solution to an issue or a problem, and a system that's working quite fine and holding up particular, power structures. And, and I'm a believer that, the conversation is always, the 1% of it, we're really in a world now, and it's always again, been a lover of history, and I've always been curious about, power and wealth is really what we need to be looking at. And, over historical context, it's kept the people and at certain levels bickering and fighting, whether that be across race, across religion, across class, and it's like, we all need to wake up and come together to go, we're going through this massive, we're going to, transition of the wealth transition and the technology scenarios that we're, going through, and we're being challenged at it's happening at pace, really quickly. It's feeling really quick. It's like, why can't we look at what we've got in common to work together to support, I know I'm not personally comfortable with the fact that there's a trillionaire in the world or even as many billion, this accumulation of just, when is enough? And how, you will never need all of that wealth accumulation. Sure. I don't, I just think that, sometimes some of the questions that we need to be asking ourselves as well, it's community, that word again, community, it's really important. And I think I don't want to leave people behind, this whole, the accumulation of wealth and resources, it's necessary. And, but I think we've also been told a particular narrative and story of, again, from this scarcity point of view of, well, you just got to keep accumulating for yours and, yours and yourself and those that, and those who are close to you. And so, and that's gotten a smaller and smaller kind of, group of people. And I just am personally, I've always wanting to figure out about how much money do you actually need in, we're just getting told about, you need millions to retire and you need all of this money, and it's, yes. And also there's so many people that, I don't know, that are struggling, and how much do you really need in this world and this life? And again, moving with intention. So I'm not saying don't be smart with money. And, I've definitely needed to be better with that throughout my, I think, again, balance. So, got to bring it to the center. But ultimately, I am a believer in community. I'm a believer in, if we all look out for each other in some way, shape or form, that's what's going to make the world like a better place. And
Yeah.
I try and be solution focused rather than woe is me and it's everyone else's fault, you know? And again, that comes with age. Like, you know, I'm an elder now, an auntie. So I like to, not quite older. I mean, don't call me auntie, but you know, it's throughout 50 years. Yeah. You know, it's a very reflective point in my life where I'm like, yeah, okay. But anyway, I don't know if I quite answered your question. Hopefully somewhere in there that it did.
No, you did. You did. And Jill, it's been so amazing speaking with you and hearing your story. And yeah, we could definitely sit here for hours and kind of
Well, haven't it? Oh, yeah, I
unpack.
just see the low batteries coming on. And it's been an hour and a half. Yeah, it's been incredible. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And yeah, I love what it is that you're doing and the podcast. And when I saw it and I saw the opportunity, I just thought, oh, I'd love to be able to share and do the thing that I really don't like to do, which is talk about myself uh, or promote what it is that I'm trying to do. And people are like, but Jill, you got to speak about it because people aren't going to know. And I'm like, I
Yeah,
suppose. Yeah, okay. So look, I do appreciate the opportunity and it's me pushing myself out of my comfort zone because, you
of
know,
course.
that's also what we need to do.
Of course.
So I appreciate the opportunity and the, ability to share my story.
No, and I appreciate you sharing your story. And like, yeah, this is exactly what this platform is for. And I've been able to meet so many fantastic and amazing people such as yourself. And I'm just, grateful that someone like you out there exists, someone who's championing, you know, young artists and artists kind of and nurturing artists to build, I guess, fulfilling careers, you know, like you can never promise to make someone a millionaire, but you can at least, you know, try and help them find fulfillment in what they do. So yeah, I certainly appreciate that. That's what you do. Before we do wrap up though, I have to move to our 3 signature questions that we ask every guest on before we take off. It's rapid fire. Don't even think about it. Just the first thing that comes to your mind. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right, let's do it. So the first one is, what is one thing that you would do again?
One thing I would do again, travel to South Africa.
I love it. Honestly, Cape Town is my favorite city in the world. So yeah, I'm with you there. I'm with you there.
Beautiful.
On the other side, what is one thing you would never do again?
One thing I would never do again. Oh, never. Such a final word. One thing I would never do again. Drop out of my sociology class.
Okay, that's fair. And the final question is, what is one piece of advice you wish someone gave you at the start of your journey?
Take time to try a whole bunch of different things in order to figure out what it is you want to do.
Yeah, very true and very fair. Jill, like I said, it's been amazing having you on the show. Before we go, let the people know where they can find you and your work and get behind what you're doing. Let them know what it is, where it is.
Well, Soul Sound Management, is that on social media? I'm working on, getting a bit more active in doing that. But I'm on, Instagram. Me also personally, because I do things through that as well. It's Gill Dunn on Instagram, Jellica54, or Gillian at soulsoundmanagement.com.au. Reach out.
Fantastic. Absolutely. And as always, we drop the information in the description, so make sure you check it out. Make sure you check out the fantastic work that Jill is doing behind the scenes for musicians such as myself to get ahead. But ladies and gentlemen, that is another episode of Before We Take Off. It's been fantastic. My name's Mufara. This is Jill. And you, as always, are fantastic and beautiful people. Thank you so much for joining us. Jill, thank you.
Thank you.
You know what? We gonna, we about to take off. Yeah, you know what? We about to take off.